I'm Bambi Francisco with Vader TV, the network for innovators. Well, RockYou is one of the more popular widget and application makers across social networks, and RockYou recently raised $35 million in venture financing led by DCM Ventures. That's on top of previous investors, including Sequoia and Lightspeed Ventures. Joining me to talk about the funding and the company and trends in the widget and application space is Jia Shen. He is a co-founder and CTO of RockYou. Jia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, $35 million, that's a lot of money. You have 50 people. I hear you're going to double your staff, so I guess that's where a lot of that money is going to go to. What type of people or employees are you looking for?
We're mostly hiring into product and engineering. Actually, for us, we've always taken engineers and directly converted them into page views and directly into applications, so that we're kind of going to continue that trend. We're also going to build up our sales team, since we definitely have a strong ad network, and we want to make sure we have good reach into like the different types of verticals that we're trying to monetize in.
Well, that brings it up to the point where I actually wanted to start with this. You're creating a number of widgets and applications. I guess you have about 50, but you also have a network of widgets and applications, and you're trying to be an ad network. So are you an applications widgets maker company, or are you an ad network for widgets and applications?
We're definitely focused on, we're an application maker. Our main thing is we make applications that users use broadly on all social networks all over the world. Okay,
so how many users are you reaching, and I guess what is your reach, and how do you actually define that?
We define reach in a very conventional web sense, especially unique users. We do about almost 90 million unique users a month, and we're doing like about 2 billion page views, I think. And it's applications are very interesting. People really think about them like things inside of social networks, and they supposedly have a different model, but they're really just like websites, right? They have pages and they have users that are registered to it. People return, and the models for how you engage them as well as how you monetize them is really no different than any other part of the web.
So as I was doing my research, there was a number of reports about RockYou being larger than Slide or not larger than Slide. So are you larger than Slide? Because if you look at the numbers you're using, you having 87 million, 90 million, and Slide 60-something million. So are you bigger in Slide in terms of unique users?
We're pretty much hands down bigger than them in any statistic. If you look on Facebook, we have more total installs, we have more engaged users. The number one Facebook application today is Superwall, and that's measured by total engagement. If you look across all the other social networks, we're number one on High5, number one on Friendster, for all the same types of metrics, Bebo, Orchid.
So don't you hate when people say that you're the kind of number two, or do you care? They sort of don't say that. Maybe they're wrong. So what about page views? 3 billion page views, because that's really the inventory that you're going to have to that you will monetize with advertising, right?
Yes, that's
about 2
correct.
billion. So there's some question whether you're counting or overcounting or maybe overinflating, because you're counting page views that of banner ads that aren't on your site. Do you want to talk to that? That was on a VentureBeat article.
The banner ads that aren't on our site.
Yeah.
When we state the 2 billion page view thing, it's explicitly about 2 billion monetizable page views.
Okay.
And so when we calculate our CPM rate, and basically the rate at which we make money and how we make our projections is based off of that specific number. Any pages that aren't monetizable aren't important to us as far as like when you report that.
What are the CPMs on your widgets or applications?
It really varies, right, actually, because if you think about, for instance, when Yahoo goes and reports their CPMs, we actually think of our applications in very similar ways. It's all about context, right? So for instance, if you have Yahoo homepage has poor CPMs compared to, for instance, Yahoo Movies or Yahoo Auto.
Or Finance.
Or Finance, right? Because they're very targetable verticals. The same thing applies to us, right? We have basically large reach channel applications. Superwall is a good example. The CPMs are lower on that as compared to, for instance, like a vertical app, for instance, like speed racing or something like that, otherwise.
So what are they on Superwall? 20 cents, 10 cents, 15 cents?
I think recently, our numbers are getting better by the day. I think we're seeing probably like 30, 40 cent CPMs. And
for Superwall?
For Superwall overall.
So you said that you have higher engagement for that, and that has the highest engagement. So how do you measure that? And is that a third party that's measuring that?
Engagement is an explicit statistic measured by Facebook. So when you go and look at the Facebook application directory, the only metric that they publicly show for any application that they measure is considered engagement. and that's basically daily active users,
Okay.
which is a fairly fierce metric to kind of maintain by actually.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. It's
users.
a daily.
So what do
really
you do
daily.
to keep them constantly engaged in Superwall?
It's a combination of it. I mean, in general, it's actually about broad. It's a very broad experience that is actually applicable to all Facebook users, and I mean, we basically create a really strong product. You basically you have to constantly create and modify and change every single day. One of kind of like the main competitive advantages of RockYou compared to anybody else is that we really innovate very rapidly. People say that all the time, but like, if you think about Superwall, we created the application. We thought of the idea on a Friday. We created it. We wrote it over the weekend. We launched it on a Monday. We literally push out a new release for that application every day.
Are you doing? I remember speaking with Max over at Slide, and he said we're doing 5 releases each day.
5 releases across what?
Across the network, I guess, across his.
Right. So if you think about, we do an application release for Superwall single day, which is our largest application. On a day-to-day basis, we actually do about 40 to 50 releases.
Is the widget business about the long tail for you, or is it about Superwall hits?
Oh, it's definitely about the long tail. The application business is definitely entirely about the long tail. We're building, I mean, applications are it's just like a website. We're going for long-term engagement, returning users, a long experiment, and a long-term experience with users. And so we want users basically to continue to go and basically maintain and use the applications.
Okay, and so when you actually have an application on someone else's site like Facebook, can you actually monetize that? So if somebody's on Superwall and I put it on my Facebook site, you can monetize. You're monetizing that now?
Yep, fully monetizable in the exact same ways that you could do it on your own site. And
will at some point the social networks want a piece of that?
It's definitely a point of debate. It is definitely a clear risk for the space. The cool part about it right now is that basically there is so many large competitors in the space, and they're all actually competing for developers like ourselves. Mm-hmm. And the monetization is the main reason why and developers actually go to specific sites.
Talk about the competition. So did Open Social, which presumably created a whole bunch of new competitors creating applications and widgets, but maybe opened up some opportunity for you. Was that helpful, or did it just provide more competitors?
Open Social is extremely helpful for us. Prior to it coming out, all the other social networks, for instance, MySpace, High5, and Orkut, weren't even going to launch platforms, or they were talking about it, but the large technology barrier to mm-hmm. doing so and figuring out all the kind of like pitfalls and with rules and whatnot really kind of was going to put them, 6 months to a year out from before launching a platform. So we weren't able to deploy applications like effectively there. Once Open Social came out and they actually adopted it, it was really easy for us to launch, and we've actually really established leadership positions on all of those platforms. A strong ecosystem is very important to us, actually. Mm-hmm. If we're the only person there and there's no actual ecosystem, as far as like a monetization for advertisements and kind of like a whole community that actually really drives the social network to actually kind of like improve the platform, all of that doesn't exist.
Also, with all these new app makers, you really want to be the ad network for those app makers. So the more app
that's
makers,
exactly
that's
true.
Great.
If you look at the top 40 application providers, applications on Facebook, for instance, like over 60% of them use RockYou as an advertising.
But were they created by RockYou, or did you aggregate them?
Oh no, this is out of the top 40 that aren't RockYou applications, 60% are.
But you're also aggregating other people who don't work for RockYou, who aren't creating apps
Yep, exactly.
for RockYou.
They use our ad network.
And they're using your ad network. How is Madison Avenue? Is that challenging, selling applications to Madison Avenue? I mean, that's what you want to be, an ad network, so you're probably going to have to knock on their doors or.
Well, I mean, we're definitely doing an aggressive job in doing that. Slide is also doing it. It's always nice to have competitors in the space to actually, when you have a real industry, like you're actually going to go out and educate the industry as an entire world. So
what's the big challenge?
The big challenge isn't that bad actually, because like typically our stuff is almost associated to kind of rich media, and a lot of that type of placement and that kind of like internet budget stuff can actually cross apply to our stuff really well. The cool part about it is that Facebook, RockYou, Slide, whatnot, has done a really good job of establishing our name. So whenever we go to Madison Avenue now, it's not about, hey, we don't have to explain social networks. We don't have to explain who RockYou is. They know who we are. Mm-hmm. They just really have to understand the context of why it's going to be effective for them. Everybody knows that when they're trying to advertise and market to kind of like the youth, social networks are the place to be. and they really actually understand that kind of like applications are the effective place to go.
Do you really feel that they've embraced it? They get it?
I don't think they definitely get it. They know about it and they're very interested about it. Right?
Okay.
So there's a huge curiosity about like what they can do about it. Obviously, there's not a huge adoption rate yet, right? But everybody knows about it. So the education process is well along the way.
So are you trying to sell them on impressions, or are you trying to sell them on engagement?
Both, really. I mean, and not to like kind of weasel out of it. You kind of have long tail advertisement. It's really just like the web. You kind of like have lots of page views, and you can monetize them in different ways. If you look at, for instance, like the screenshot of our site right now, you have really kind of more engagement-based type of advertisement stuff that's not CPM-based, right? It's really about kind of doing a sponsored advertisement, sponsored products inside of our different types of products, and that's really about selling the engagement.
Okay. I have a couple more questions, and one business-related, one more about just the behavior on your site. But in one of the articles in VentureBeat, it says you're valued at 200 to 230 million range after the 35 million raise. Can you confirm that?
It's around there.
Okay, good. So you confirmed it. Thanks. Okay. Where do you see, you have $35 million. Where do you see, what's your exit strategy?
Our goal is actually to become a top 5 site in the world. We're already at 60% penetration on Facebook. We intend to replicate that with every major social network literally in the world, right? So we're big on the ones that we've already listed today. And we're definitely looking at whatever other types of interesting social graphs are actually coming along the way.
Okay. And final question about just kind of the behavior of the people on your site and evolving culture online. What have you learned about human nature, just following and observing all the people who are on your site, the millions of people on your site?
Oh, sure. Like, the big thing for us is actually each social network is actually very incumbent in a core demographic. And so, for instance, Facebook and MySpace are big in the US, but they're actually slightly different demographics. High Five is big in Hispanic-speaking countries, and Friendsters in Southeast Asia. The cultural differences are they're definitely slight cultural differences, but a lot of the basic stuff when people actually go and socialize is really pretty much the same. One of the big things that we talk about is kind of obvious is that targeting girls is actually really, really effective, right? Because from a kind of consumer, user-generated content, and from people who just interact and really self-express a lot more, they're the users that actually do most of it. And so our users are like about 60% female,
okay.
And then the guys pretty much kind of like follow after that.
And so more women are more inclined to do some of the
widgets, social applications, all of that. They're the most engaged with it.
Right. Okay. And one last thing about, we talked earlier about how how you see the world, where it used to be. Just explain how apps sort of came to be, where people used to go to Yahoo and different websites, and now people are going to social networks and different apps. Oh,
sure. So, I've been saying basically applications are very much like the web. So each individual application is really just like an individual website. If you think at kind of like Web 1.0, there's all these individual sites for, there's movie reviews, restaurant reviews. When you want to go buy something for your car, there's a specific individual site. And the world first started to explore this information through kind of a directory like Yahoo. Then it moved on to kind of like search through Google, in which how they discovered this information. This latest generation is actually discovering information and browsing information in the web through social networks. It's actually what I consider their homepage. They go to it over and over every single day, and everything they look at is actually through a social context. They want to see what what movies their friends are watching, and the kind of like the real later pitch is like looking at what your friends are going to do, what they're buying, what they recommend, and that kind of thing. And so they're browsing the web really through social networks.
So it's all about a shared experience. Okay, well, good luck to you. Spend that 35 million wisely.
Great.
I've been speaking with Jia Shen. He is the co-founder and CTO of RockYou. I'm Bambi Francisco.